Hey guys, this video is for you to do your notes while you are in the station. So this is the worksheet you need, the one with the quadrilaterals. This is the front and the back, and then this is the inside. We're gonna make a foldable, kind of looks like this one, okay? So the first thing we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to fold along this solid lines like this, and then we're gonna have to cut along this dotted lines, okay? So you can make a foldable that will open up like this one. So you can also cut. What I found helpful is that I cut this extra part right here, this extra space right along this line, and that made it to where it folds really nice and there's nothing overlapping. So when you have that done like that, that cord is on the way. We're gonna fill in the information on the inside, like you can see. I've already done my key so that you can copy it on your notes and we can talk about the different things. So the first thing I want to talk about is a quadrilateral. So the very first top one right here. So if you haven't cut up your foldable yet, push pause on the video and then you can continue when you're done. Okay, quadrilateral. To know that what a quadrilateral is a polygon with exactly 4 sides, and it has also 4 angles. It can be classified 2 ways. It can be classified as a polygon or a quadrilateral. Okay, so that's a quadrilateral. The next one we have is over here is the rectangle. So the rectangle, I think we talked about this one in class plenty of times, and you've probably seen this one everywhere you go. So this one, if I can get this open, there we go. A rectangle is a parallelogram with all right angles, and it can be classified in 4 ways. It can be classified as a polygon, as a quadrilateral, it can be classified as a parallelogram, and a rectangle. So let's talk about this one right now, parallelogram. Because we talked about quadrilateral already, and a polygon we know is just a closed shape with more than 3 sides or more. And a rectangle, well, that one has all the right angles, right? It's just a parallelogram. So let's talk about a parallelogram now. It's gonna go backwards. So parallelogram will be next. This one right here on the bottom. So a parallelogram must have 2 pairs of parallel sides. Okay. Excuse me. If you notice, this line and this line, they're parallel to each other, and this line and this line, they're parallel to each other. In a rectangle, it's exactly the same thing. The top and the bottom are parallel to each other, and the left and the right are also parallel to each other. So that's why a rectangle is also considered a parallelogram. Okay, so a parallelogram, like I said, it has to have 2 pairs of parallel sides, and you can classify it as a polygon, a quadrilateral, and a parallelogram. 3 different classifications for a parallelogram: polygon, quadrilateral, parallelogram. Make sure you write those down. If I'm going too fast, make sure you push pause on the video. All right, the next one that I want to talk about is this trapezoid, because a quadrilateral is either going to be a trapezoid or a parallelogram. Okay, so we're also going to have kites in just a minute. I'll briefly talk about those really quickly, but the main ones we're going to need to know is trapezoid and parallelogram. So a trapezoid, you fill in the blanks. This quadrilateral must have exactly 1 pair of parallel sides, and it can be classified in 3 ways: polygon, quadrilateral, and trapezoid. So this one, the big thing about this one is this right here: one pair of parallel sides. That's how you identify a trapezoid. This and this one, they're parallel to each other. That's 1 pair. These 2 are not parallel to each other, so make sure you know that. The next one that we have is a rhombus. And a rhombus, if you remember what we talked about it in class already, has all equal sides. When we talk about shapes, we talk about the word congruent. We talked about that word yesterday in class, so please make sure you write that one down. This is a parallelogram with all congruent sides, or equal. And it can be classified in 4 different ways: polygon, quadrilateral, parallelogram, and rhombus. And the last shape that we have in our notes is the square. So the square is like one of the perfect shapes, or if you will. You have, it's a rectangle, and it's also a rhombus. It's a rectangle because it has all right angles. And it has a rhombus because all the sides are equal to each other. So it can be classified as a polygon. It can also be classified as a quadrilateral because it has four sides. It's also a parallelogram because it has two pairs of parallel lines. It can also be classified as a rectangle because it has all four right angles. It can be classified as a rhombus because a rhombus has all equal sides and a square does too. And if you combine all that, then it can be called a square. So this one has 6 different categories, 6 different names that you can call it. Okay? All right. So now if you open up the top 2 flaps, you can see on the inside of your foldable the shapes. I've already made all of the different marks that you need to have on that. So the first one we're going to talk about is this one right here, the quadrilateral. This quadrilateral, we know it's a quadrilateral because it has 4 sides. Okay, and then there's a right angle right here, so you can go ahead and draw that right angle, the little square. Okay, so this is how you show right angles, right angle vertices. Vertices is just a corner. So you have a little square in every 90-degree angle. So because this is a square, every corner has 90-degree angles. Same thing for a rectangle. Now this is a trapezoid. And be careful, because this is not an isosceles trapezoid. We're going to talk about which ones are isosceles and which ones are not. This one is not. And I'll tell you why that word isosceles. We talked about that word already with triangles. So how is that tied to the word trapezoid? We're going to talk about that in just a second. So this is a trapezoid because it has only one pair of parallel lines. You can see I've put a little arrow this way and an arrow on the bottom because these two lines are parallel to each other. You can also tell that there's a right angle there and a right angle there because I put the little squares there. So if it's a perfect 90-degree angle, we'll put a little square right there. Okay, so make sure you have those markings on your notes. Now I'm going to close that one up and open up the middle flap, the 2 middle flaps, so we can see what's the next section. Well, I guess I can open up like that. So how to show congruent angles or equal angles. And we use little arches, little arcs. Okay, so for example, we know that this angle right here and that angle are equal to each other because they kind of look the same, right? And you would be right, these are the same, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. And then these two are the same. You can tell because this has one little arch and this one has one little arch. So this one has 2 and this one has 2. That means these two are equal to each other and these two are equal to each other. That's how you can tell, how you show if you have congruent angles, which means equal angles. So if this one is 30, then that one is 30. If this one is 50, then that one is 50. Okay? By the way, this one could not be 30 because, as you can tell, it's an obtuse angle, so it has to be more than 90. So this one could be like 120. This one has to be 120 also. And then that would be, I don't know, 80 and then 80 or something less than 90, okay? All right, on this next one, you have a parallelogram. And now you can tell that these two angles are equal to each other because they both have 2 arches. And then these two are equal to each other because they only have 1. Same thing on this one. This is also a parallelogram. So you have that is equal to that one, and this one is equal to that one because it has 2 different arches. That's how you can tell if the angles are congruent or not, if you have no actual numbers. Okay. Now we have the next set of notes right here in the middle. I'm going to open this up so you can see it. It says how to show congruent sides. In congruent sides, those are the little hash marks that we put. So this side gets 1 and this side gets 1 because these are equal to each other. But these two, if I have 2 lines like that, even though they may look exactly the same and you think this is a rhombus, if you have 2 lines on these two and 1 line on these two, that means that it's not a rhombus. It can't be because all the sides are not congruent. Okay? So in this case, this would be just called a parallelogram because it has 2 sides that are parallel to each other, 2 pairs of parallel sides. Okay, this one is a trapezoid. It only has 1 pair of parallel sides, and these 2 lines are the only ones that are equal to each other. You can tell that one is longer than this one, so we know those 2 are not equal to each other. A rectangle, those 2 are equal to each other, and these 2 are equal to each other. In a square, all the sides are the same. Okay, and then the last little piece right here. There's also more quadrilaterals that are covered in these notes. This quadrilateral is called a kite. You've probably seen those flying in the air, right? Well, a kite has adjacent sides, and that word adjacent means that it's next to each other. So the sides that are next to each other are congruent. And what that means is that this side right here and this side right there, they're next to each other, they're equal to each other. So we put 1 little hash mark. These two are equal to each other, and they're adjacent to each other. That's why they have two little tick marks right there, two little hash marks. All right, and the last one here, this is an isosceles trapezoid. This is the one I was telling you about. Isosceles, we saw in the triangles that it means two congruent sides. Just like the word isosceles, it kind of sounds like the word eyes, like the ones in your head. So you have two eyes in your head, and that means that we have two congruent sides. That's just a way to remember what isosceles means. It means two equal sides. So a trapezoid that's isosceles has two congruent sides. For example, this kind. These two sides are equal to each other, so this makes it a isosceles trapezoid. And now if you look back over here, this one's not isosceles because this side is not equal to this side. And that has to do with the angles. You can see that there's right angles right there and there's not right angles right there. So this side is parallel to that side. That makes a trapezoid, gives you one pair of parallel sides. But these two are not parallel to each other, and they're not equal to each other. This one is not equal to that one. So it's not an isosceles trapezoid. It is a trapezoid, but it's not the special kind of trapezoid. Normally, we see trapezoids like that, which is isosceles. But they can also be drawn like this, where they're not isosceles. And normally you can just say, that's a trapezoid. Good, that's good enough. But if you're trying to tell the difference between a trapezoid and an isosceles trapezoid, then you have to be more specific, and you have to look to see if it has two congruent sides. Okay? So when you're finished, notice that my notes are now done. You should have every single piece filled out already, and then you can close the little flaps like I'm doing right now and turn it over, and it tells you that now you can glue it onto your notebook. Okay? And then these notes right here you are going to use to do your practice problems, which is these right here. There should be a sheet like this in your station. Grab one, put your name on it, and you're gonna try to see excuse me, which of these figures use these figures to help you label your hierarchy and set diagram. So in other words, if this is like the big mama, right, and it has three sons, one of them is the kites, which are the other two? We talked about that in class. So quadrilateral means four-sided shapes, right? So we know kites is one of them. So which one of these shapes, the letters, which letters are going to be the kites? We talked about the adjacent sides. We talked about the little hash marks, the little tick marks that we have there on the sides. Tells you which ones are equal to each other. Okay? So make sure that you are working on this one. This is going to be your homework. This is your special trapezoid, the isosceles trapezoid. Tell me which ones are regular. So maybe you know what this is now, since you know it comes from or it comes out of that one. So that's the isosceles trapezoid. I wonder what that one is. Hint, hint. And then that's a rhombus. I wonder what this is. Both of these share properties with the special type of quadrilateral, the perfect one. So remember which one I said that one was. So you're gonna put letters, the letters of these quadrilaterals where they belong here. Okay, so A could belong in more than one place. Okay, so for example, A is a trapezoid, right? So trapezoid, you should know where it goes, somewhere here in one of these blanks. Now, if it's an isosceles trapezoid, then it would go here, and it might just go also in the regular trapezoid, and it might also be in the quadrilateral because it does have four sides. But it's probably not going to be in the kites because it's not a kite, and it's probably not going to be a rhombus, so I wouldn't put it there. But it could be in more than one place. Let's see what you can do on this one, and then we'll go over the answers, and you will turn it in for completion grade to see what you did. Okay? All right. Have fun.